For over 2 decades, the Pokémon games have captured the imaginations of players around the world. From their humble beginnings on the Game Boy to their evolution on the Nintendo Switch, let's explore the rich history of the Pokémon games and how they became a global phenomenon. Inspired by his childhood hobby of insect collecting, Japanese game designer Satoshi Tajiri envisioned a game where players would capture, train and battle creatures. This idea led to the creation of Pocket Monsters, or Pokémon. In 1996, Pokémon Red and Green were released in Japan for the Game Boy. Developed by Game Freak and published by Nintendo, the games were an instant hit, captivating players with their unique gameplay and innovative concept of trading Pokémon between different versions of the game. 2 years later, Pokémon Red and Blue were released internationally, sparking a global craze. Players embarked on a journey to become Pokémon masters, exploring the Kanto region, catching all 151 Pokémon and challenging the Elite Four. Following the success of Red and Blue, Pokémon Yellow was released, featuring Pikachu as the player's starter Pokémon and removing the 3 Pokémon choice to mirror Ash's adventure from the animated series that had also become a global hit. In 1999, Pokémon Gold and Silver introduced players to a whole new region, the Johto region, adding 100 new Pokémon, a day and night cycle, and new gameplay mechanics like breeding and held items. These games set a new standard for the series, expanding the world and deepening the gameplay experience, something that each iteration in the series would innovate on. In 2000, Pokémon Crystal was released, enhancing Gold and Silver with animated sprites and the option to play as a female character, another feature that would become a permanent staple in the series going forward. With the release of Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire in 2002, the series made the leap to the Game Boy Advance. The Hoenn region brought vibrant colours and improved graphics, along with new features like double battles and abilities, further enhancing the strategic elements of the game that players were looking for. Pokémon Fire Red and Leaf Green released in 2004 and revisited the original Kanto region with updated graphics and features seen in Ruby and Sapphire that were brought to the original game, allowing a new generation of players to experience the classic adventure. Pokémon Emerald was released soon after, building upon Ruby and Sapphire with new features like the Battle Frontier and more engaging story elements, providing a richer experience in the Hoenn region and also furthering the story of the region and creating more lore. The series then made the jump to the Nintendo DS with Pokémon Diamond and Pearl, released in 2006. The Sinnoh region introduced 107 new Pokémon and utilised the DS's dual screen capabilities. Online trading and battling became a reality, connecting players worldwide like never before. A revolutionary step for the series, both casually and competitively, as you no longer needed a link cable to be able to trade and battle with other players of the game. In 2008, Pokémon Platinum was released, following the trend of a third game for each generation. The game enhanced Diamond and Pearl with new features, a more involved storyline, and the expanded Distortion world, making the Sinnoh experience even more captivating. 2009 saw the return of a fan favourite set of entries, but now better than ever. Pokémon Heart Gold and Soul Silver brought players back to the Johto region with enhanced visuals and new features, such as the Pokewalker, an accessory that allowed players to transfer a Pokémon and level it up by walking in real life. In 2010, Pokémon Black and White took players to the Unova region, featuring an entirely new set of Pokémon and a more narrative-driven approach. Incredible art design and dynamic battle scenes brought the Pokémon world to life in unprecedented ways. In 2012, Pokémon Black 2 and White 2 were released, serving as direct sequels to Black and White. Something we hadn't seen yet in the Pokémon universe were direct sequels. These games expanded the Unova region and introduced new storylines and features, providing a deeper experience in the familiar setting. Some consider these games narratively to be the best in the series that has yet to be produced, as well as being the most underrated and underappreciated of the whole franchise. It was now time for the franchise to take another leap forward, with Pokémon X and Y releasing in 2013, which revolutionised the series with full 3D graphics on the Nintendo 3DS. The Kalos region introduced Mega Evolutions and character customization, both of which have been highly requested features for future games. However, the game did lack in new Pokémon being introduced to the series. We also got this generation set of remakes in 2014 with Pokémon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, revisiting the Hoenn region, bringing the beloved 3rd generation games to the Nintendo 3DS with updated graphics, new Mega Evolutions and expanded storylines. However, some will argue that the map did contain too much water. Pokémon Sun and Moon released in 2016 and transported players to the tropical Alola region. The game shook up the traditional formula with trials instead of gyms, and introducing regional variants of classic Pokémon. A welcome change of pace for the other games in the series, even if not a very popular decision at the time. Ultra Beasts, a new form of legendary Pokémons, were introduced in Sun and Moon alongside the concept of Z-moves, though the latter feature would not prominently return in future games past the release of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon the following year. In 2017, Pokémon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon expanded upon the original Alola adventures with new story elements, more Pokémon, and additional gameplay features, offering a richer experience in the vibrant tropical region. In 2018, Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee brought the series to the Nintendo Switch with a reimagined Kanto region and gameplay mechanics inspired by the mobile game Pokémon Go, making the games accessible to a new generation of players. For the first time, motion controls played a major part in the game, whilst the gameplay was much more centred around catching Pokémon rather than battling. Pokémon Sword and Shield, releasing in 2019, was where we finally got to see the capabilities of the Nintendo Switch with the expansive Galar region. Open world elements in the wild area, Dynamaxing, and new ways to interact with Pokémon made these games a landmark entry in the franchise. Though they have had their fair share of criticisms, such as lack of difficulty and early performance issues, they were a great baseline for what can be achieved on the Switch. Pokémon Sword and Shield were also the first entries to be expanded further with DLCs, the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. These expansions introduced new areas to explore, new Pokémon to catch, and new storylines, extending the adventure beyond the main game. In 2022, Pokémon Legends Arceus reimagined the series with an open world adventure set in a bygone era of the Sinnoh region. It showcased the franchise's willingness to innovate and evolve, acting as a testing ground for the future of the franchise. The game introduced frenzy Pokémon and the crafting of items, whilst following the story of how the Pokémon world came to be shaped in the way that we have seen in the games that we have previously loved and played. Pokémon Legends will be returning with a new entry in 2025, and is one to look out for as it may be the first entry on the new Nintendo consoles that will be releasing that year. And now, the latest entries in the series, Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, have taken the Pokémon world by storm. Released in 2023 for the Nintendo Switch, these games introduce players to the Paldea region, offering a fully open world experience where the traditional linear progression is replaced by a more flexible, exploratory approach. Scarlet and Violet bring new features like terrestrial phenomenon, allowing Pokemon to change their types during battles, and the freedom to tackle gym challenges and other quests in any order. These innovations aim to prove a fresh experience while retaining the core elements that fans love. And just like Sword and Shield, Pokémon Scarlet and Violet was also expanded with DLC, the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero, introducing new areas, new story content, and even more Pokémon to discover in its two parts, the Teal Mask and the Indigo Disc. From its early days on the Game Boy to its evolution on the Nintendo Switch, the Pokémon series has continually captured our imaginations and brought joy to millions. What exactly is next for the franchise is relatively unknown, but let us know in the comments what you'd like to see in future Pokémon games, and who knows, we may even put them into a video and discuss the idea on what we'd like to see. Also, let us know what memories you've had of playing these games over the years. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.